know Lemuria, you're probably familiar with Atlantis, right? Atlantis was this civilization in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that was very, very advanced, and it was on an island and it sank. And so there was a similar civilization in the Pacific Ocean. So this was also very, very advanced. And so these are the people who were on the Hawaiian Islands. And so this is the story that is from here. And Avalon, yes, it all fractaled out. So hi, Meredith. So Lemuria was a very large landmass in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and it was also a very advanced civilization, but different. Atlantis was more of a technologically advanced civilization, and they were very similar, and some timelines have them existing concurrently, some timelines have them existing overlapping each other, some just before the other. We're not going to get into technicalities here today. So Lemuria was a civilization where the beings engaged with gravity, but they were not bound to it. And so they were able to shapeshift into beings who went into the water, and they were able to shapeshift into all different kinds of things. And they were very deeply compassionate, and they were very deeply connected to the lands. They worked with water a lot. We go over all the different aspects in the Lemurian school, in the Remembering Lemuria course. They worked with sound healing, song lines, working with the ley lines of the land. They were very connected to the stars, to reading the stars, working with astrology. Very advanced, very compassionate, very heartfelt, connected people. So, and then their time, they came to the completion of their timeline. And so it was necessary for them to leave this timeline and this dimension. And so the island sank. And so they are no longer here in that way, in that physical sense. But what happened is that there was a bloodline that was passing down all of this, and this is where you can go and you can read how this was passed in through. It's always dangerous to say this because it gets people really in their head. Oh, good. I'm glad it's helpful. It is connected to the Pleiades, and it's connected to Sirius, and then of course it's so I was saying, it gets kind of dangerous when we get too linear and too mental about it, because Lemuria was a multidimensional state. So when we try to apply our linear constructs and confinements, it can get a little funny. So Lemuria and Atlantis existing concurrently, overlapping timelines. Lemuria came to its completion. It was removed from this dimension. The landmass sank underwater, and it also broke apart. So that's where it's like, exactly as some of you were saying, that it is all the Hawaiian Islands, Polynesia, New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia, Bali is connected to it, and then up onto the western shores of the United States, up into Alaska, all of this. And so then when Lemuria completed itself, Atlantis was still there, or it came shortly after, depending on how you look at things. And then Atlantis was there, and then Atlantis was this super advanced, technologically focused mental, whereas Lemuria was more like water and earth, if we want to get elemental about it. It was all of the elements existing in a balanced way. And then Atlantis was more air and more fire, if we wanted to talk about it that way. Where it's like, this is trying to talk about something we don't have words for, basically. So Atlantis came to a place where they were really pushing, as the story goes, what was possible from a state of physics, and caused time and space to fragment. And so then it was like, it was basically the fabric of time and space was no longer stable enough to hold them in this dimension, so the island sank. And from there, from Atlantis, the people went to what we now know as Egypt. And so that's where, if you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, he talks about when Atlantis sank, and he talks about going in spaceships over. There's so much to this. It's not enough for a little Instagram live. Going over to the land of Cam, which was then Egypt. And so there's this transmission. It's hard to say that there was a transmission of bloodline from Lemuria because they were multidimensional beings and they were able to procreate in different ways that we procreate right now. And so, and then from Egyptian times, there was a bloodline of lineage that was carried down. And this is where you get from great. Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. That's a good book. That's not one of my favorite books, but it's a good book. I have a bunch of books on my resources page. So if you guys aren't tuned in to my resources page, it's all free. It's just tons and tons of books there, so you can check that out. And there's more books specifically on Lemuria and Atlantis and everything when you are in the Remembering Lemuria school. Okay, so I know we're going to meditate, but like we were just explaining this. I'm trying to make it short. So that bloodline went along, and that was where we have Isis, and I'm going to say it out of order because my crystal bowl is sitting on top of the book that it's in. It's right here. So Isis, Morgan Le Fay, Morgane, Mary Magdalene, of course we're talking about this on her feast day, Lilith, and then it stopped, right? It was stopped. The bloodline was stopped during the Spanish Inquisition, during the witch hunts, and so it fractaled out. It was always going. Yes, exactly. The lineage of the codes of light. So it was always going to persist, this lineage from ancient timelines. And so it fractaled out because it could no longer be contained in the physical bloodline. So it fractaled out. And so many of us, probably most of you listening to this, have those codes within you. And that's why you're here, is because you feel that vibration and that resonance within your being. And you might not understand it. This might be the very first time you've ever heard any of this. And there's something in your body that is like, there is some truth here. There's something here for me to learn. Even if you actually don't think it's true right now, but it's kind of like you can't stop listening and you can't keep looking away. But it's like there's something that's here that's pulling you here. And that's a truth of the resonance of the lineage within your cells. Good, you just got that book in the mail today. The Keys of Enoch is a little bit complex. It's helpful, but it's a little complex. The language, if you're starting out, I would not start with the Keys of Enoch. There's a lot of information that's a lot more accessible than that one. But it's still a good book, definitely for advanced users. So, absolutely. Okay, so that's kind of, and so, okay, then I'm going to finish that. So in that transmission of the codes, it did go from Egypt to, oh, you're crying tears of soul remembrance, girl. Yes, your body is remembering. Yeah, if you have goosebumps at any point